there's 2 here at the elementary. We have 1 at the middle and 1 at the high school. And so we have these compost bins, but we really don't know how to use them for our garden. So I did some research. You all have learned to do some research, haven't you? I did some research and found out that in the town of Yarmouth we have, I'll call him the king of composting, a gentleman here that works for the town. His name is Philip, and I can never pronounce his last name.
Hildebrandt.
Hildebrandt. And he is in charge of all the composting, and you might see him down at the transfer station, at the recycling center, when your parents go to the dump, okay? And anyway, he agreed. He came out and was so excited about this, and he agreed to come out and tell you all about how to compost. So welcome. Let's all welcome him.
Big hand, you're welcome to Lake.
Good morning. Good morning. Is everybody awake?
Yes.
I don't know. Let's try. Is everybody awake?
Yeah.
Yeah, talking. All right. So, how many of you guys compost at home?
Me.
Look at all the hands. That is fantastic. Do you guys have compost bins, or do you have a garden you put it in?
Yes and yes.
Go ahead. Just shout it out. This ain't in there.
Say it a little louder, Nicole.
I have a compost bin.
All right.
I have a compost bin. I have
Okay,
both.
this is
Well, I tell you what, that is fantastic. It is exciting for me because I really enjoy composting and doing the classes and stuff, and seeing so many kids your age that are already composting at home is fantastic. That is awesome. What do you use your compost for? Go ahead.
For soil.
Yeah?
To help your plants grow.
Yeah?
My garden.
Yeah, very good. Now, do you have a flower garden or a vegetable garden?
Both. I think I have both.
Very nice. Very nice. Yes? That's right, it is. These kids are awesome. Oh my God. Well, hey, listen up. What we're going to do today is kind of learn what we can put in our composting bins. Sounds like a lot of you already know anyway, but I think a little education is always good for everybody, and it always keeps me reminded too. Now, when I compost at home or when I teach the classes at work, because I'm right down here at the transfer station, and we got big piles of compost, huge piles, and it's really neat to be able to do that. But one of the things I had to do is I had to go to school for a week and learn what I was doing. I look and I was watching and I'd see someone turning the piles with a loader, but I didn't really know what they were doing, and I was just kind of doing what they were doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. Well, then I learned by going to school. So school is awesome. One of the things I learned was how to make a recipe. When you make brownies at home, you have a recipe for brownies. And you got to add certain amounts of different things to make a good batch of brownies, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about right there. Well, one of the things I learned was how to make compost, and that there was a recipe to it. And part of that recipe was greens and browns. You got what they call greens and browns. Greens are nitrogen, browns are carbon. We're just going to call them greens and browns. But you got to have so many greens, so many browns. You got to have some moisture, which is your water, and you got to have air. So those 4 components: greens, browns, air, oxygen, water. So when we first start making a compost bin, what we want to do is put in some browns. It can be leaves, it can be sawdust, small wood chips, and you make a small layer in the bottom of your compost bin, because one of the things I learned in the class was compost happens in one spot and one spot only, and it's where the nitrogen meets the carbons. If I take, now grass is a green, right? All right. Leaves are brown. If I take these 2 items and I just put them together like that, the whole thing's not going to compost. The only thing that's going to compost is where the greens meet the browns, right where they initially touch. And eventually it'll compost, but when you mix it up really good, that's how you get fast compost, and that's what we're going to learn to do today. So I put some browns in there, and from the house we can have everything from old banana peels. Yeah.
And I have a bucket beside us too.
Oh, we're going to get into that in just a second. Eggshells are compostable. They tell you to do one thing with them: make them smaller. Okay? You got to make them smaller. And the reason being, the smaller it is, the more surface area is going to make contact with the greens and the browns. I'm not just shredding this because I enjoy it. It works. All right. Now, which teacher brought this out? And you are?
Mrs. Tate. And our classroom has been collecting it now for, what, 3 weeks now?
Yeah.
Two weeks now.
Disgusting.
One of the great things about collecting in the classroom, what we're collecting basically is greens, nitrogen-rich stuff. But a couple of things happen to the greens as they come in, and they get moldy. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's good stuff. It's slimy, it's juicy, and one of the things about the juicy stuff is, see, that one's still a little hard. It's not really rotted. But what I'm doing, I'm making it smaller so that it'll compost faster, right? And down in the bottom of this is some juicy, juicy, juicy stuff. I mean, now this apple's been in there a while. It almost smells like it's fermenting, like apple cider, and it breaks up really easy. But it's been in there probably the longest, like what, 2 weeks?
Yep, 2 weeks.
So, and then the top apples are just in there. I have to push really hard to break it. So the ones that have been in there longer are actually starting to break down, happy like that, right? Now, the juice that's in the bottom of that is good also. We're gonna put that in there. It's all good. Now, one of the things I'm gonna do is mix that up. Now, there's some really soft ones in there.